I'm Stuart McAllister from Dole. Just to introduce Roy. Roy was actually a CIA Hyde Park graduate and speaker of his class, the top of his class. He had worked in hotels and fine dining for a number of years, and then he found himself out of work and decided to open a taco truck, and that was in late 2008. And he also became Papi Chulo. And you've been hearing that word. Does anybody know what that means, Papi Chulo? It means it's a Hispanic Latin term that means ladies' man. And as Papi Chulo walks down the street, all the ladies with their handkerchiefs out the window, that's Papi Chulo. It also means kind of a father figure of the streets of LA. And now he has 5 trucks and servicing 300 locations. So in some sense, he's kind of a decent-sized chain. He also has a growing catering business with those trucks. 2010, he was voted Food and Wine magazine Best New Chef. 2010, he also opened A-Frame and Chago. A-Frame was voted #1 new restaurant by LA Magazine. Chago was #2. So what I derive from Papi Chulo, from Roy, is inspiration. And just seeing what he does with things that I'm completely biased to is pineapple. He has the pineapple Pac-Man named after Manny Pacquiao, and each of his dishes has a story behind it. But the Pac-Man is all 3 of his marinated meats in a burger, and the pineapple Pac-Man adds the slice of pineapple, grilled pineapple on there. He's currently running a chicken pineapple torta. These are all specials he runs every 2 weeks. In Chago, he has a warm, sweet Korean rice cake with caramelized pineapple and puffed rice. He also plays around with banana, and he has the reinvented Elvis sandwich with grilled banana with Thai peanut satay sauce and Thai chili sauce in a grilled cheese sandwich, perhaps inspired by Dave. And then, in last week, he ran a peach quesadilla. So, he's not afraid. He's using fruit as a flavor in cooking with fruit. So there's seemingly complex dishes, but, as Jerry had shown in his slides, and also as he commented, that they're also very simple. They're just big on flavor. So what does Roy really do? Is it a roller coaster? What is he doing? I describe him more as a tightrope walker, to borrow from Ross's analogy of keeping that balance. A couple weeks ago, one of the Walenda brothers got a permit to run a tightrope 2,200 feet across Niagara Falls. And that is really Roy, because he is a risk taker without a net. He has raging waters and his environment around him, spray in his face and wind, but he maintains a peaceful balance as he confidently moves forward across that wire. Okay, so now we'll get into this first piece to kind of set up and show you more about Kogi and Chago, and it'll show the love that Jerry had mentioned that he brings to his food, his ingredients, and his crew and his customers. He all surrounds that with love.
What you just saw right there, that's happening right now. It's 2011. It's happening on the streets of LA with your children, with your friends, with your family. It's happening, it's happening right now as I'm speaking, right now on the streets here in Orange County. There's probably a truck right here in Irvine. And all of this is right under our nose, So this speech today, I'm going to try to show you a little bit of that, and a little bit of who we are, and a little bit of who you are. And and just see what just one city in America and how they're eating, and how we're making a connection to them. I wanted to really take a look at why we're eating hamburgers, Salisbury steaks, macaroni and cheese, why we're feeding these things to our kids, why these are continued flavors and regurgitation of flavors that were continuously going on, and how far those go back. And I wanted to show you that they don't go back very far. And I wanted to really, I'll get into it later, but I wanted to really bring up the energy of that anything is up for debate. Anything is up for change. And anything that we see right now at this moment in time actually came through change and innovation and radical immigration. A lot of the beginning of our eating culture was really based around our religious piety, you know, so there was no chilies, there was no spices, everything was boiled and very pure, clean, bland flavors. Actually, in the early 1900s, we were an extremely well-eating society. A lot of it in our urban cores were a direct relation to Escoffier and also some of the French influence, but just as a society, because of the food wasn't transported as easily as it is now, obviously, but we were eating oysters, rhubarb, watercress salads, endives. I look at menus. I'm a big food geek as far as menus go, and looking at, I used to really love trains and the whole service of dining trains, but just looking at the menus, it's just amazing how we used to eat. And then we get into the 1920s, and it's truly the roaring 20s of our society in every aspect. So what you start to see is the Waldorf salads, the chicken a la kings, the big buffets, that are a big part of our life now that we're probably going to eat in about 45 minutes, right? Then came the 1950s, right? I think this is really the turning point of where we're at right now, because refrigerations went from industrial to home. And then corporate brands really started to get into their full speed. A lot of brands that you work for today. Even though a lot of these brands were around in the late 1800s, up into the early 1900s, they were still, factory-based, single-unit cells that would just produce and then distribute. Whereas now, as we get into the 50s, they really, because of refrigeration, freezing, and packaging, and then we get into the beginning elements of television and advertising. Then you have Betty Crocker, Duncan Hines, sugar-free soft drinks. Pam came into play around this time. Electric can openers, Swanson's TV dinners, Sweet and Low, Haagen-Dazs, Cheese Whiz. All of these things became an everyday commodity in our life. If you can imagine our life shifting from none of these names even existing to all of a sudden them becoming a normal thing in your life. It's very different from just 30 years earlier, and this was the result. We get into the 70s. The 70s were an interesting time, right? On the food end, we really started to develop as a culinary country. Things started to shift a little bit with Alice Waters and Julia Child coming into play. But the biggest thing is, the most important thing that I think we need to understand is that advertising really kind of stuck their foot in the door at this point. But what was happening was our flavor profile, I think, as a society and as a people, were starting to change. They were shifting not based upon what our bodies need and what our appetite is desiring and what our human nature is desiring. It was being controlled a little bit by these psychological messages. So as we're reaching kind of a height of maybe doom and gloom, we get this new influx of immigration. And we're talking about the Koreans, the Mexicans, the Vietnamese, the regional Chinese, the Taiwanese, Central Americans, Africans, Brazilians, Indians, Persians, Armenians, Thai, Eastern Europeans, and many more. The reason why everything is up for debate and everything is up for change is because the Irish and the Italians were immigrants too. The Jewish were immigrants. So all of these things came through immigration. The flavor comes through immigration. So as our palate was starting to turn and being controlled by corporate advertising and through processing, we got this influx. So it kind of balanced us out. And then it brought us to a flavor. It brought these cultures and these countries and peoples brought in a new flavor to our existence. I was very fortunate at the beginning of this year to go to Thailand with a great group of people that are here today through Dole. While I was there, I knew it before, but it just really cemented in my life that they eat 8 times a day. 8 times a day. And nobody's fat, nobody's obese. They're looking to eat more. We're looking to eat less, You know, it's a very odd way, very absurd and warped way of life that we've created for ourselves, where we don't want to eat, you know, because we don't want to get fat. It's just, I don't understand it. But in Thailand, they want to eat more. They eat 8 times a day, and they just keep talking about food. And the moment you finish a meal, you're talking about the next meal, you know? I've been to a lot of countries in this world, and nobody's obese. And every country, even though they're different, always has the same culture of eating. You know, wanting to eat more, the only thing is to feed each other and try to make sure that you are eating the most delicious thing possible. It's only about deliciousness and making sure you're comfortable, making sure you're happy. I really believe that the root of everything is flavor. And I'll show you some slides later, but I believe that because it's not something we really focus on every day as a popular society. We've rounded out our flavors so much in our diet. They're inundated with salt, sugar, corn syrup, and fat, to where we, in many cases, don't even search for vibrancy or delicacy or things that challenge us. We want things that just satiate and comfort us. What if we introduced more herbs and spices and aromatics to our cooking and purees? It's just as easy as the things we're doing now. It's just exploring and going out further and maybe tapping into these immigrant families and societies that have come in to offer us not only hard labor, but offer us culture and the food that they come with. Because what happens is if you put these spices and these herbs in your food, and if you develop a more complex flavor profile, what happens is you don't eat as much. With these round flavors, you have to satiate your stomach, and you have to eat more because, again, I believe this is my scientific study, is that the flavor, because it's lacking in the complexity of flavor, you have to feed yourself more in order to fill that empty void. Versus filling a bowl with maybe fresh herbs and a beef broth and some noodles, like I'm talking about pho, if you guys all know Vietnamese pho. You don't have to eat as much because there's so much vibrancy and depth and spice within that one little bowl that the amount of food you're eating is actually maybe 40% less, 60% less of what you would normally eat on a daily basis, but you're just as full because the vibrancy just piqued everything within you, not only your physical body, but your spirit as well. So a lot of our food and a lot of the things we do at Kogi, Chego, A-Frame, wherever, is we're never forcing something into a place that wasn't, where the spirit or the soul wasn't there to begin with. We try to take a look at where we're at, whether we're on the streets of Inglewood or we're in a little spot, or if I'm in Newport Coast, you know, or if we're in a little spot in West LA. And then we try to fit the food and flow with the food around what we have. And what you get is that. You get happiness. You get cactuses who know how to use chopsticks. That's Korean-Mexican fusion right there. Right? And then, but the thing is, the most important thing is we sell this whole thing for $8. And nobody's coming in making reservations. Nobody's, you know, like, it's not a big endeavor or a big process to come in and eat the chubby pork belly. You can just drive and pull over, eat, and then go on with your life. And that's the most important thing, I think, with Chego, and the beautiful thing. It's time for us as a people to start making some changes. I really believe we need to break the round cycle. Respect ancient immigrant cultures. And what I mean by that, and it doesn't matter where it's from. Most recently, a lot of it's coming from Asia and Latin America. But, you know, there's also stuff coming from Damascus, Syria, and Lebanon, and Morocco, and, you know. But really respect these cultures instead of looking at it as you know, again, as an immigrant or as a foreigner to this country. Look at what they're bringing. And discover real flavor, and then the results, happy food, happy customers, and overwhelming demand. There is an amazing appetite out there on the streets of America, and in the homes of America, and in the suburbs of America. But we're only giving them so much as professionals and as the industry leaders. We're only giving them options that don't meet their demand, okay? These kids are 10 times smarter than we are, okay? They're moving 50 times faster than we are, and we're giving them stuff that's 40 years behind. If you make something delicious, and again, that goes back to flavor. If you just make it delicious, they're going to eat it. And then so stopping people on the street and giving them a taco that's filled with all of these ingredients, maybe consciously they don't connect to it right away, but what happened was their soul opened up, and they felt it. What I want to leave you with is, we have that here in America. It's just we're not giving it to them, okay? And the only people that could give it to them is you guys, you know? I'm just a taco truck. But you guys are what they eat on a daily basis. So what I want to learn from you is, how can we take the first baby step of maybe still doing the things that you're doing, whether it's whatever format it is, I don't want to call anybody out, whatever format it is, but maybe removing one item and replacing another. You know, maybe removing something that is chemical and replacing it with something that is natural, or removing one repeated flavor and replacing it with taking a chance and repeating it, or replacing it with something that is coming from a different place or that's more exciting. So like, you know, again, for example, removing maybe lettuce and replacing it with Thai basil or raw ram or something. Removing, white onions or mesclun mix and replacing it with something that excites the palate more. And then from there, we can see. It's not going to happen in our lifetime. I can guarantee you that. But we're all still here right now, though, so we can at least make a certain shift. Kogi already made that shift, you know, and so, the door's wide open.